What's up, everybody? Welcome to podcast now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Call of Duty versus Battlefield. Now, we're looking at the executives and some interesting comments that was reported that Activision is saying kind of behind closed doors. But may I just start this off by saying it is kind of fun. It is a little refreshing having this back and forth. So really, no matter what I'm going to say, I do kind of like the spirit of the game of Call of Duty versus Battlefield. To be honest with you, and I'm probably going to say this later on in the video, healthy competition is great. It's needed. And it's something that, whether Call of Duty or Activision actually believes this, whatever, we need more than just COD that's out there, that's really pushing players, that's really doing big things, because you're just not going to get these companies, these games taking themselves all that seriously. Trying is kind of what I'm trying to say here. They're not going to try as hard if they have nobody to go up against, okay? It's the console wars type thing. It's why, you hope that you always have at least two, if not three, to always push each other. If one just dominates, which, to be honest, Call of Duty has dominated kind of forever. Battlefield was a nice little, back and forth thing they had going there. But then really, how long has it been since Battlefield really was pushing Call of Duty, was really pushing for mind share of the people? It's been a long time. Even though, 2042 wasn't that long ago, you can't really count that because it never did it. It wasn't good enough to even be considered, in my opinion, competition to COD. And so, okay, I kind of made my piece at least at the beginning here. Let's look at this Insider Gaming article. Exclusive. Activision leadership isn't worried about Battlefield 6 because Call of Duty is too big to fail. So they say Insider Gaming has learned that Activision leadership has been taking note of Battlefield 6's recent hype, but it's not worried that the franchise will surpass COD. Speaking with sources who wish to remain anonymous, yada, 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 they say although Activision is keeping a close eye on Battlefield, they are not worried about the game outcompeting its flagship title. It's said that Activision leadership believes that Call of Duty is too big to fail and will remain a profitable, annually released franchise for many years to come. At the time of this writing, an annual Call of Duty title is penciled in for the next 4 years at least. So look, I don't even have too much to go at in terms of that first sentence. Look, if you're Call of Duty, you are releasing these games yearly. You're making a lot of money. I do think I correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the player base of COD maybe 2, 3, 4 years ago was higher than recent. I know they always talk about it just breaking benchmarks and every game kind of does better than the last, but I'm talking about staying power. I don't feel like the last maybe two have had as much staying power as maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. That's just my opinion, but hey, they're doing well. They've got, Activision has Microsoft and has all of this money, has Game Pass to get out to probably more people than ever before. Okay, they're taking note on Battlefield. They know it exists. They know it's coming out, but they're not worried. And here's the thing. Should you be worried that Battlefield is all of a sudden going to literally outsell Call of Duty? I do find that very hard to believe. COD can average. Now, sales are definitely harder to figure out because of Game Pass and it's just not as widely talked about, I feel with COD now as it used to be, but you can kind of pencil in COD for 20 million plus, at least people playing. Now, whether 10 million are buying it and 10 million are Game Pass, or 15, or say it's a 30 million a 30 million player game, can't say sales, so it's 30 million, is it 20 million sales? We don't really know anymore. It kind of almost makes it less fun because it's kind of hard to compare them if you don't know all the data. But so to be honest, does Battlefield stand a chance there? Some of the higher Battlefield games were reaching that 10 to 15 million, and sometimes EA would even say that wasn't good enough. They wanted more. So maybe EA wants 20 plus million, but Battlefield, is it capable of reaching it? I think it is eventually. I think, again, a fun thing with this little drama back and forth thing is Battlefield has a chance to re-enter the ring. I think that's what 6 can do. I do think it can have a pretty serious hit. If you're literally talking about boxing, okay? I think it can nail a pretty direct hit to Call of Duty this year. Now, can it knock Call of Duty out this year? No. Battlefield is a very big brand, and I would say strong, but it's not consistently strong. I don't know if you would call Battlefield it is consistent in the sense that you can do what you've just done over the last, quite a while and still have a chance to rebound with 6. And I think that's kind of fun too, right? Like for all their mistakes, Battlefield is big enough that 6 can really just bring it back. But look, direct competition takes that consistency. Now, I am not a fan of Call of Duty doing yearly releases. I'm not a fan even of that little added on part. Oh, they got 4 years penciled in for Call of Duty. That's not a flex for me. Now, for them, they're selling, like, you know what I mean? It's different. They're selling. They're having people play it. People just don't give up. So, to them, it's, hey, 4 years of consistent Call of Duty games are going out there. To me, I feel like that's just not a great strategy, but what do I know truly? So I guess what I'm trying to get at, for Battlefield to really start to enter that ring and consistently stay there and start delivering more blows, it's got to be consistent. Now, I'm not talking about a Battlefield game every year. In fact, for the love of God, please do not do that. But if you do 6 now, and then 3-4 years down the line, you do 7, or you go backward, whatever you do, 6.5. If you can do that, and you can do another one, right? It's kind of what I talk about with like CD Projekt Red, right? Bounces back from Cyberpunk's, situation. But for me, I don't really consider them fully bounce back until they do Witcher 4, until that comes out day one. And it's not the buggy disaster that was Cyberpunk. And I feel like there's an okay amount of people that are like not willing to give them that full trust until they do it. I mean, we're talking about sales here, I guess, for Battlefield, so it might be a little bit different. But I just feel, like, can Battlefield reach COD? I definitely don't think it's going to happen here. I think a really good Battlefield 6 does a serious blow, because a really good Battlefield 6 gets probably 15 million players. I think it can do that, which is very close. And not even just 15, say it does 15 million, and say maybe it cuts into Call of Duty. If you can get it down to like 20 to 15, you're within striking range. And by the way, like, I prefer Battlefield, okay? My own personal bias is Battlefield. But I grew up on COD. I just want good games. That's really, like, I do prefer the style. I do understand Call of Duty can never really become Battlefield, and why would you really want it to? But so I do prefer Battlefield, but I just think healthy competition is one thing. And you know what? For that kind of opinion, like the first paragraph, fine. Second one, where they say they think that Call of Duty is too big to fail, never say that line out loud, ever. For politics, for government, for banks, for life, for literally anything. Never say you're too big to fail, because oftentimes what will end up happening is you will fail. It just might not be maybe in the way that you think you're going to, okay? So, like, I do hate to hear that. That is some serious cocky stuff that I don't like. It's okay to be cocky, I guess, when you're winning, like, you can be a little, but like Battlefield 6 looks like it's bringing it, and Call of Duty, to me, is not what it once was. I did actually play last year's, and I thought it was solid, but it's not changing my life. I get that I am probably not their person that they're shooting for. Again, maybe being more of a Battlefield fan, but I think it's fine. But I do love some of the older Call of Duty games. And ultimately, I just want really good competition. And it really might take, especially when you're releasing a Call of Duty game every single year, that shows you they're just in the machine. You know what I mean? They're just going. They got that machine going, and they're not tinkering with it. They're not making adjustments. They're just going, right? Which, in some ways, can be fine. And when you're not pushed and there's nothing expected of you, is fine. When there is something expected of you, when there's competition, when there's a little bit more pressure behind you, okay, now all of a sudden you have to start making, and that's really what I'm looking forward to. That's why I started the video the way that I did. Good competition. And it might take Call of Duty failing, not even failing, it might take Call of Duty doing the exact same stuff they've been doing for 10 years, and then just having Battlefield come in and actually be a legitimate, consistent force. That's what it might take to make Call of Duty improve, in my opinion. But I think the performance this fall, that's actions. I mean, this is just words, but that's actions. Okay, how well does the next Call of Duty game do? And then it's not really, especially with these kind of shooters, it's not really just how it does, day one. But okay, you look at it, you look at sales, you look at player base, day one, month one. Okay, what about, month 6? What about next spring? What about what about this time next year? How are these games acting? And that will be the action. Because, yeah, you're not, I hope not. You're not going to get a Battlefield game every year. So it is different. It is naturally different. COD will continue to release yearly, but, maybe if you can have a Battlefield game that really almost 1-to-1s it every 3 years, you know, and then it's just consistently around in those 3 years, right? The gap years. If you can do that, I think you'll just breed competition. Because, by the way, Battlefield can't, like, I'm only really talking, like, against COD, but to be fair, and just to quickly throw this out at the end here, well, what about Battlefield? Well, Battlefield always, I think that's why we are getting Battlefield 6 in the first place, right? Pressure. They don't really, like, again, the competition is not all that stiff, but you know what? In terms of, I would say, quality, it's not all that amazing, but in terms of timeshare and mind share, like, you know, these shooters and these live service games, they've got a lot of people's time just like they've eaten it, right? The older Battlefield games still have people's time just eating it. So in order to stand out, you have to make something that really like gives it your all. Battlefield is not in a position to do what COD does, to kind of phone it in, to release yearly game. Like, it's not in that situation, right? It needs to do, hopefully, what Battlefield 6 is about to do. And then it cannot get complacent. Battlefield 6 is the start. It needs to have amazing, consistent updates, and then whatever the next Battlefield game has to be at least as good, if not even better. That's how they come back, and they cannot afford to go backwards. They cannot afford to phone it in. So they almost have this natural, I'd say, competitive kind of thing going because they're forced, because it's the deck is not stacked for them right now. But if they start doing it, then again, like it starts to shift where, okay, Call of Duty can't be so complacent anymore, right? They have to start. So, and that's what I'm looking for. That's ultimately what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the best versions of these games as humanly possible. And really, that kind of sums up my opinion on Call of Duty. Like, they're fine. Look, there's something very special about Call of Duty games because they just work. They truly just work. I don't know if they will work forever, but they clearly have worked, you know, up until this point. But I still feel like there is this sense of just, they're fine. At least to me, they're just fine. But is this the best we can do? God, I hope people don't answer yes. You know what I mean? Whether you love Call of Duty, you're in the middle, you hate it, I hope that you're not saying, oh yeah, this is the best that Call of Duty can possibly be. They are pushing themselves to the extreme. No. I mean, you don't have to, I'm not saying like destroy your workers and have them do like 20-hour shifts. I'm saying, like, is this the best Call of Duty we can actually get? I think, hell no, absolutely not. We are far from that, and competition should bring that out of them. So that's just my thoughts on this entire situation. You let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.